Welcome back to another episode of Decoded. My name is Jesse, and I'm the writer, director, and narrator for the Lost Codex episodes, and welcome to the first podcast of 2019. We've been doing the podcast. We are on episode 34, so the Decoded's birthday is coming up in a few months, and I apologize for the lack of podcasts over the last couple weeks. Christmas and New Year's and just the holiday season in general was not my favorite time of year, but to all those who tuned in to the streams in December, 31 days of solid streaming. We did it. A week yesterday was our last stream for the year. I'm back. I streamed last night. For those of you who weren't in the stream last night, for those of you who listen to the podcast audio, whether it's on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, I am going to be putting out a schedule, an official Jesse office hours schedule coming up soon. It's going to be 5 days a week, I'm thinking. Definitely evening Monday streams, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, one of those will be a day off, will be afternoon streams. Friday will be a bit of a longer stream, and then one weekend stream. So I want to make sure there's enough time for all you Europeans or Australians and New Zealanders who can't tune into the evening streams because I am East Coast, Canada East Coast, time zone at least. I want to try and make it so you guys can tune in. So definitely keep an eye out on Twitter and our Discord and our Twitch page for all the details on when those office hours are going to be. But 31 days of streaming, good lord. But for those of you who only listen to the podcast and don't care or cannot watch the podcast live, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being around. But I'm back. I'm back, and we're ready to talk about a whole bunch of stuff today. Those of you who were watching on YouTube, you clicked on the thumbnail. That thumbnail, though, which at the time of saying this has yet to be created, but I have faith that Jeff is going to make a great thumbnail, clickbait worthy too. For we're talking about class customization today based on your race. We're going to talk about tinkers. We're going to talk the big T word. And there's a lot going on. There's just a lot to talk about. I was kind of struggling for a topic, and then I thought, this is perfect. So, before we dive into that, let's talk about some weekly news. The Blizzard, the big they, put out the raid preview for the Battle of Dazar'alor and the schedule that's behind that. So, for those of you who missed it, January 22nd, so a couple weeks from now, normal and heroic difficulties will be going live on January 22nd for US realms, 23rd for EU. Mythic and Raid Finder Wing 1 will be January 29th, Raid Finder Wing 2 will be February 12th, and Raid Finder Wing 3 will be February 26th. For those of you who don't know, there are 9 bosses, and the description for the Battle of Dazar'alor is as follows. For ages untold, Dazar'alor has stood at the center of the great and powerful Zandalari Empire. For those wondering, by the way, that actually was a different description on the PTR, and it was changed. It used to say, it basically imply that Dazar'alor was the capital over Zuldazar. While Zuldazar has actually been both in lore and in an RPG, literally the name Zuldazar has been in World of Warcraft since the very beginning, but the raid description implied that Dazar'alor was the actual name, and then it was changed. So it reads now as, for ages untold, Dazar'alor has stood at the center of the great and powerful Zandalari Empire. Its guards have thwarted numerous attempts on King Rastakhan's life, and it has endured trials both ancient and new. But as war reaches the shores of Zuldazar, the Alliance embarks on a daring gambit to besiege the Golden Pyramid and sever the Zandalari's bond to the Horde. Now, for those of you who don't know, this raid is going to have both neutral-themed bosses, not neutral-themed bosses, but bosses that are Alliance-themed, Horde-themed, and kind of in the middle. Which means you'll be raiding as both the champion you play, but you're also going to get to see the opposite faction side. Now, if you don't want spoilers for what's happening, I'm going to try and give as, little spoilers as possible for this raid. But for the Horde players, they announced what races you will be. So if you're a Blood Elf, most Blood Elf players will transform into humans, while Demon Hunters will become Night Elves. Goblin Heroes will transform into Gnomes. What an insult. Except for Hunters and Shamans, who become Dwarves. Orcs will transform into Dwarves. Talk about a shift perspective. Pandaren will stay as Pandaren. Most Tauren will turn into Draenei, while Druids will become Night Elves. Trolls will mostly transform into Night Elves. Oh, the irony. Troll Shamans will become Draenei, and Warlocks will become human. And the Undead, these players will transform into humans. And the bosses are as followed. The Champions of the Light is going to be the first boss. As the vanguard for the Alliance's assault on Dazar'alor, Frida Ironbellows leads her troops with fervor and conviction. I believe she's a Dark Iron Paladin. Which is pretty cool. Her battle prowess and unwavering faith in the light makes her a force to be reckoned with. Then we've got Grong, the Jungle Lord. After volunteering to become a living super weapon, the once intelligent Grong devolved into a giant rampaging behemoth. Though his mind may have deteriorated, Grong's strength is more immense than it has ever been. And then we have the Jade Fire Masters. Though they began training only recently, Mansroy and Mestra have perfected their teamwork and now present a united front. With both fire and fists, they stand ready to strike down any who challenges the Alliance. I believe this is a cultist human mage and a Draenei monk, which is a really random combo. Blizzard probably spun a wheel. That is the most random. I'm not upset, it's just why them? Anyways, then we have the next part, which is called the Defense of Dazar'alor. Then we have Death's Bargain. Witness King Rastakhan's defiant stand against the bloodthirsty Alliance invaders. We have a boss called Opulence. Long ago, King Dazar had his golden treasury enchanted so that it would rise against anyone except its rightful owner. Many unsuspecting thieves have been slain by the very riches they coveted, serving as an important lesson to those who would steal from the throne. Literally, you are fighting a treasure elemental. Conclave of the Chosen. Deep within Dazar'alor lies a chamber built to honor 6 of Zandalari's greatest Loa, guarded by their most devout followers. Trespassers who dare enter this sacred hall are soon met with primal fury like none they have ever seen. Bunch of trolls who represent the different Loas, and they actually got really cool Loa-themed armor. I thought that the armor was actually like boss models, but apparently they're actual item models just on regular Zandalari trolls. So like Paku's representative is wearing like a Paku mask, and it's actually an item. Unfortunately, they don't drop those items, so let's hope that in the future, maybe they could be, that'd be really cool to have like a Paku mask or a Gonk mask. That'd be cool. King Rastakhan. For over 200 years, King Rastakhan has ruled the Zandalari Empire. Since the fall of Razan, spoilers, he has turned to a new patron, Buon Samdi, the Lua of Death. The dark bargain he has made grants him the power to crush his enemies. But at what cost? So, those are the first two raids for the Horde. Then the last part for the Horde is called Victory or Death. And the Horde players obviously do not fight King Rastakhan, or the Conclave of the Chosen. That is where you play as the Alliance. So the first raid, the first part you start as Horde, second part you start as Alliance, third part you go back to being Horde. And you chase after the Alliance, who have just laid siege to Dazar'alor. The first boss is the man himself, High Tinker Mechatork, unrivaled in their... oh, my page has reset. Oh my god. Unrivaled in their what? Well, first boss is Mechatork. Crap. Technical difficulties. Second boss is the Stormwall Blockade, or Stormtide Blockade. Bunch of Kultirist priests and Tide Sages, that's what I'm talking about. I believe one of their names is Tide Priestess Catherine, and I was really not hoping, but I thought, it's not Catherine Proudmoore, is it? Spoilers, it's not. And the last boss is Jaina Proudmoore. The MMO champion is blown up because this page isn't loading. RIP! And they actually, Oh, here we go. As the Alliance fleet withdraws from Dazar'alor, Lady Jaina Proudmoore stays behind with a handful of Kultiran vessels to slow the Horde's pursuit. Storm clouds gather overhead as Jaina leads her pursuers deeper into the Great Sea, where she will attempt to turn the odds in her favor. She literally freezes a landmass, and you fight her there. It was actually really cool. I don't know if it's actually going to make it to live, but if you if you pop Bloodlust, she just ice blocks, and you can't attack her, which is actually pretty cheeky. Now the Alliance, what do the Alliance transform into? The Alliance Draenei will transform into Tauren, save for mages who will become orcs. Dwarves will turn into orcs, paladins will become Tauren, priests will become undead. Gnome will transform into goblins, except for monks, obviously. You know what? They should have just let gnome monks turn into goblins, because the goblin monk animations exist, but that means they'd have to put in goblin monk, so I get why they didn't. Who will become blood elves? Most humans will become undead, but paladins will become blood elves. Night elf players will transform into trolls, except for demon hunters, who will become blood elves. Pandaren stay the same, and all Worgen will transform into trolls. Now the bosses for the Alliance are Champions of the Light, same boss, only you're fighting some Zandalari paladins. This is where we were first kind of confirmed that Zandalari could be paladins, though it wasn't really confirmation, it was just a raid boss has it. With the bulk of Rastikon's forces lured into Nazmir, the time has come to storm the city. Afterwards you fight Jadefire Masters, again a mage and monk combo. Then the Alliance actually gets to fight against Grong, only this time Grong is now dead because of the Horde. So Buon Samdi resurrects him, and you fight undead Grong. Rip Grong. And then you go in and you attack Opulence, the Conclave of the Chosen, then you fight Rastakhan himself, and then you turn into the Horde for Mekatork, Stormwall, and Jaina. Kind of cool that Blizzard's allowing you to see both sides of the story and actually going to change your appearance. I think that's we've seen that before in different instances, like Caverns of Time and what's the other one? Oh my god. All the Caverns of Time. The Well of Eternity, stuff like that. So it's cool that it's not just your one solid race. It would have been a little bit neat if they would have allowed you to turn into some Zandalari or Kultiris humans. Just a little sneak preview of those animations. With I guess the exception of Warlocks. If you play a Warlock, you become... Or it'd be really cool if you could choose. That would have been really cool. But I would have loved when you play the Horde version. But I guess when you're fighting, it's not the Zandalari who attacks Mekatork, it's the Horde. So I guess I can see why. I guess. So still, I would have loved to see that. By the way, and someone actually here in chat just pointed out, it's not just the appearances, but you also get their associated racials as well, which is really cool. So be excited, everyone, except for Pandaren, because you don't gain anything at all. Except the coolest melee animations out there. More weekly news is we have a lore stream. If you're listening to this on Stitcher, iTunes, or SoundCloud, then the lore stream from Blizzard is going to be tomorrow on Thursday, January 10th. For those of you watching on Twitch right now, it's not tomorrow because today's Tuesday. And the stream is going to be led by Steve Denusur. I'm sorry, Steve, I'm butchering your name. Who's the senior narrative designer for World of Warcraft, and Taryn Gregory himself. We don't really know if it's a Q&A like the Josh and Ian Q&As, or if it's going to be more like a Q&A, a 8.1 Ian stream that he did before BlizzCon. Either way, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. If you're listening to this and you can tune in and watch, go watch it. Go throw Steve and Taryn your support. You know, these guys, they've never really done, and they being Blizzard, has done a lore stream like this before. So this is huge. And I hope the community, I hope it's a positive feedback, because that means this will get done more. Blizzard used to do CDev Q&As back in the day. where they just dropped whole bunches of lore bombs everywhere. And I don't say lore bombs in a negative term. I mean just like, oh yeah, casually mentioning some pretty big lore facts that you're like, oh my god. But Blizzard hasn't done that in a while. So if we encourage or we support this lore stream, maybe we'll get more of that in the future. And if they don't answer your question, or the answer they give is a little bit fluffy, don't scream. You know, ask it for the next time. If we scream and stomp our feet, guess what? This will probably never happen again. So let's not ruin it for everyone else. Let's be good. And we're going to move on to the actual meat and potatoes of the... and to quote Taliesin and Evitel, yes, it's going to be a shit show, as we know. So for those of you listening here, let's fight the shit show. Let's go in and be the actual good people. Let's not be the toxic Twitch chat, do you not have phones comments. This is not about anything else but the lore of Battle for Azeroth, which is great and awesome, so let's go be awesome and support them. Otherwise, we'll probably never see it again. Let's dive right into the meat and potatoes of the podcast, which is talking about class customization, tinkers, and so much more. Now, Legion built on class fantasy. Legion really sold you on, I'm gonna say, limited class fantasy. The Druid class fantasy was amazing. We got to see all the, you know, so many of the at least the Night Elf wild gods. But things like warriors bothered me in that it really only applied to humans. In that we go to the Halls of Valor, which was cool. Odin, I love Odin. I love the aesthetic of the Halls of Valor. I love the Vrykul theme. I didn't dig how it was just a forced theme for all warriors. Humans, cool. Trolls, Draenei, orcs, you know, orcs and Draenei are aliens, and Odin's all like, hey, welcome. No, didn't like it, wasn't a fan. I would have loved, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on podcasts before, a little island off the coast of the Broken Isles, and it's an abandoned Vrykul citadel or fortress, and the Horde in Alliance go to try and claim it. Sarfang and Trollbane go to try and claim it. And there's maybe the spirits of a Vrykul warlord who are locked there. Helia, throw Helia's theme in there. You fight back against the Legion. You fight back against Helia. The spirits of the Vrykul welcome you into the temple, and maybe you get a chance to visit the Halls of Valor. But then you've got sort of this think of, the weather effects that you see, that we saw in Stormwind with when it's all storming during the Cataclysm invasion. So think about this really high winds, heavy rains on this island, this cold sort of Vrykul abandoned fortress. All the hearths are lit. You've got huge arenas where warriors of both factions have decided, you know what, we're putting aside our factional hatred, and we're coming together. We are working with the spirits of the Valajar here. Still keep the Vrykul theme, still keep the Odin theme, but instead it's more a collection of the most brilliant tacticians in the world. Danath, Trollbane, Sarfang, bring in Eitrig, bring in Jarod's Shadow, a Shadow Song. Literally any warrior you could have brought here in a guest appearance. Bringing Sarfang to the Halls of Valor, No. Didn't like that. So I would have loved to keep the Vrykul theme, but more this badass, and have it really close to the broken shore. You could see the Tomb of Sargeras looming in the background. You could see, the demons are constantly assaulting, so you've got Alliance on one side, Horde on the other side of the island fighting. Heli is attacking from one side. Just a constant battleground on this little island, and maybe Javi shows up, and you meet Javi there for the first time before you even know it's Odin. Then you do Stormham, and like, oh bro, it's you. That would have been so much cooler. Bring a bunch of Vrykul smiths. They kind of repair the fortress. That would have been my ideal warrior class hall. Just a giant, think like Blackrock Hold, very dark, cold feeling with storm and rain, but then on the inside there's big fires going, and there's dwarves sitting with Tauren, just battle-hardened warriors talking and training and smithing and punching each other. That would have been cooler, but we got the Halls of Valor instead, which, again, one of my favorite dungeons in-game. I've rambled. Class fantasy was there, forced a little bit, but it was there. It was present, cool, everything was fun. There's never been a racial class fantasy, though. And what I mean by that is fantasies that fit your race and class. So, human warriors fit in the warrior class hall, but no one else really did. Maybe undead, former human, whatever. Druids were good about that, but again, mages were very Dalaran themed. So, if you were an ancient, highborn or blood elf, and Dalaran's kind of a questionable place, or even Draenei, there was sort of this, it was a much smaller scale of magic. Your race is a lot more practiced in the arcane, so the race class fantasy wasn't really there in Legion, and I get why, because it wasn't the point. The races didn't band together, it was the classes, so fine. But now Battle for Azeroth is focusing on the races and the factions, right? We've got allied races everywhere. We see a large representation of different race classes in game. So, for example, we see a lot of Void Elf mages and Void Elf priests. When we're doing the incursions, we see a lot of Lightforged paladins and priests. A lot of Dark Iron shamans, stuff like that. We see a lot of the new allied races and the old races coming together. So what if the next expansion kind of combines both classes and the races? And I'm not saying it's going to, but let's just say it does. What are we going to get from that? Well, let's dive into that. Now, but before we get to the other ones, I want to talk about the big T word, Tinkers. Now, Taliesin and Evitil and Mr. GM have both recently put out a video on Tinkers, and both of them are awesome. Taliesin and Evitil, Taliesin specifically dives into the supposed evidence that's in game, talking about the abilities and the island mobs, while Mr. GM specifically goes into their actual abilities that they cast, the animations, and how it would fit the fantasy. Both actually, Taliesin kind of does an overview of the idea. Mr. GM goes in on the class abilities, and they both kind of cover who would be Tinkers, but I want to really dive into who would be Tinkers and gnomes and goblins, obviously. But let's right away, people are listening to this and going, ugh, Tinkers, this is when Demon Hunters were a big rumor, ugh, Demon Hunters, just go play a warlock. When Death Knights, monks, I get it. So let's dive to BlizzCon 2019. Bam, they've announced Tinkers. Tinkers are coming in game. So for the sake of this argument, Tinkers are in the game, coming to the game no matter what. We're not even going to bring up what a Tinker is versus engineering. Blizzard has decided, for the sake of this podcast, that Tinkers are a thing. Throw all other arguments out the window. Who's gonna be Tinkers? Let's take a look. And obviously goblins, obviously gnomes, and obviously the yet to be announced Junker gnomes are going to be Tinkers. And we're not going to talk about them very much. Because why? Because they are the Tinker class. Mechatork, and not Galvix isn't really a Tinker, but Gazlo, obviously the big Tinkers in the lore. But what about the non-obvious options? So let's dive into Draenei and Lightforged Draenei. They the oldest race the Alliance has, that both would have actually. The Draenei, millions of years ago, not millions, thousands of years ago, on Argus, developed shield technology. They developed golem technology with the vigilance. What's really interesting, and I've talked about this with Issei, their technology involves souls, and right away you think soul technology, legion, badness, but the Eridar perfected it in a way that it wasn't harmful to the soul in question. When you think soul magic in general, it's a very negative thing, but the Eridar found a way to willingly allow a soul to still function, to still keep its the word I'm looking for is its individual mind, its sanity, even if it doesn't have the fleshy body. So Eridar way back developed the concept of vigilant Quoram that we see on Argus, the sassy gatekeeper, willingly gave up his fleshy body so he could sass people to the ends of time in this giant robot suit. We see that they have satellite technology, literal flying turrets that just zap the shit out of flying anything. They've got teleportation pads. They've got everything. So imagine, Draenei Tinkers, I guess they'd be called the Artificers, Golems. The big idea with Taliesin and Mr. GM's videos, which by the way, links are in the description, go check them out. They're actually really, I clicked on them going, ugh, Tinkers, I was very, not against it, but I was very like, what, why? And I watched it and I'm game. I'm a fan. Years ago when we first saw Mechatork in his suit, I was like, oh, that'd be a cool class. And then I kind of abandoned the thought and I didn't really think of it more. So when I clicked on it, I was hesitant going, well, now that it's a thing, I don't know if this is a good idea. Watched it. I was convinced. Go watch it. But basically they talk about golems and mechs, turrets, ranged weapons, buffs, support shields, and healers. So how does that come into play with Draenei and Lightforge? Well, we've got the golems. We've got the giant vigilants. Only, what if they just jumped in the suit themselves? What if it's the same vigilant model, slightly altered, in that it's sort of like a Gundam suit? They hop in and you have these giant, Draenei are like 8-9 feet tall. Let's just make them bigger and put a giant robot suit around them. That's terrifying, but also more practical. Why use, the soul magic is a good long-term thing, but if you've got a healthy young Draenei who's ready to fight, let's use him in body. And then if he gets damaged or he dies, if his soul can be saved, then we'll go the soul route. So imagine big burly Draenei, or a Draenei female covered in Lightforge tattoos jumps in, suit closes, maybe it's an open suit, kind of like Mechatorks, and you have these goblin mechs, these golem mechs. You've got turrets. Don't think of like a cannon turret or a machine gun turret. Think of literally just a crystal pylon with like floating wings. Enemy goes by and it doesn't shoot, it just zaps a laser. It zaps crystal technology. The Draenei literally had electricity on Draenor when they used the crystal technology there. So same kind of idea with turrets, and whether it's flying, whether it's ground locked, something, not flying like in the air, but hovering off the ground. Teleport pads, how cool would that be? You put down a little pad and sort of serves the purpose of a warlock warlock gateway. Maybe it's a temporary boost. You put down this teleport pad and a random mech, a smaller automated turret beams in using the Lightforge beaming effect, or the Draenei beaming effect, and runs in. And it'd be cool if the Draenei and Lightforge had different, one had the purple arcane crystal or blue crystal effect, and the Lightforge had the yellow and the orange. Be cool to see them differ. Both of them have the same technology. The Lightforge is obviously more infused with holy, so instead of an arcane crystal blast, it's just fiery holy magic. That would be dope. What about Blood Elves? Blood Elves, you think Blood Elves as these magical experts and practitioners of the arcane, but we do see they do have the robots around the city, the magical golems. And as of Miss Pandaria, they have the blood golems now. So what if they used a combination of both blood magic and golems with the old Silvermoon golems? What if they had they're not so much about fel, so the fel crystals. When you think of blood elves, you think of fel crystals, but Sunwell crystals instead, in the same sort of turret effect as the Lightforge or the Draenei. That float around, or maybe giant red crystals, and they zap with blood magic. Same sort of idea, different model than the Lightforge and the Draenei, but still the same idea. And to go hand in hand with Blood Elves, Nightborne. Nightborne, we saw many places in Suramar. The Nightborne used technology and magic to create this awesome combo. Specifically, the giant centaur mechs that held together by magic, that was one of the coolest models. Anytime I see that in game, whether I go back in Legion or I see them used in a really rare spot in Battle for Azeroth, it's so cool to look at because it's one of the coolest models that Blizzard has ever done, and I really hope that we see them used more in the future. But imagine, that would be like so cool. Maybe while Draenei hop in a mech, maybe the Nightborne ride the mech. That'd be cool if it was a centaur. That'd be goofy as hell, but that'd be so cool. They hop on the back, or maybe they, the elongated back and the upright, they go inside the back. I don't even know how it would work. It just sounds cool. Let's pretend it's a thing. Announced at BlizzCon 2019. They've got crystal technology, but instead of the floaty crystals, what if they just had literal just magical cannons or runes? Runes on the ground with sort of this floating hologram of something, and that hologram is zapping people or enemies in some sort of way, using the aesthetic of the Nightborne that we saw so frequently. Illusions, why not? If there's a stealth ability, and I think one of the Mr. GM talks about one of the gnomes or goblin units able to just vanish. What if Tinkers could do that, as a quick getaway, but for Nightborne it leaves behind a little masquerade figure? That'd be goofy as hell. I love that. And to tie back to Blood Elves, if Blood Elves can do it, why not Void Elves? I'd love to just see the same style done for Draenei and Lightforged, only voidified, using the purple and gold and faded gold instead of the red and gold aesthetic for Blood Elves. That would be cool to see. But they should try and keep it balanced. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe yes. Screw it. It's happening. What about, and also with Nightborne, the teleportation pads? Oculith just loves teleportation. Dwarves and Dark Irons. We've got, we have the Dark Iron golems who run around. We've seen those brand new models for Battle for Azeroth. What if we took the old style dwarven battle tanks and we just made it into a mech? So like a ram head on wheels, on just a giant rolling pin. That would be terrifying and clunky as hell, but screw it, that would be fun. Or hell, just a battle tank itself. Dwarves and Dark Irons don't get golems, they just get tanks. That would be dope. If Nightborne can ride the centaur mechs, then Dwarves and Dark Irons just get battle tanks. That would be goof. That would be so goof. I'm trying to think. It would need to be like a personal size battle tank, so you don't take up the field as a vehicle. Blizzard, come on. This is getting cooler by the second. Massive turrets, massive cannons, and again, dark iron style and Bronzebeard, Mountain Dwarf, Ironforge style would be really cool to see. Also, if these are a class and they have ranged abilities, and they're using guns, I would love if a whole bunch of new guns were put in game to fit all the races. So maybe Blood Elves don't have guns, but they have an automatic crossbow turret. Bows are the Blood Elf range weapon of choice, aside from magic, but screw it, let's make an automated crossbow turret. Draenei, there's a couple Draenei crossbows out there, but let's make some Draenei guns. Let's make some more dwarven guns. Let's gnomes get a cool gun in Battle for Dazar'alor. If you're a gnome and you like transmog, there's a new gun coming in the next raid. So then I thought about what other races in the Horde can be Tinkers, and the idea completely I think of orcs, I'm like, not really, but Mag'har, and by normal definition, just the clans of Draenor, not really, but the Iron Horde and the technology they had. It's been 30 years. Who knows what they've developed? And what I have in my notes here, think of the Felsteel Annihilator, the mount that drops from Hellfire Citadel. Both no fel, just rough, clunky, goblin, clearly a goblin inspired mech, only Iron Horde style. They shoot little mini iron stars. How cool would that be? Little turrets with cannons. No mechs. Weaponized beasts. Their mech is literally just call a Gron, and they just hop on the Gron. Screw it. Why not? That would be amazing. Or maybe in the same way that the Lightforge can summon in a little mech to help, maybe the Mag'har can summon a Gron or a Rylak with cannons on its back. That would be amazing. And I love the fact that we see the Magar and the Iron Horde technology being used, actively used in Battle for Azeroth. In the, I think it's the Nazmir incursion, we see the destroyer, the giant ship. We see iron stars in Tiragard Sound that literally break down the gates of Borealis. Like, it's the fact that Blizzard hasn't forgotten about those things. I'd love to see how Magar technology has evolved in the last 30 years. I'm really thinking of a way. I know it's not something that would get a whole lot of thought put into, but 30 years is a long time for technology to be perfected. I would love to see, or you know what, in the case of orcs, more destructive, more crazy and insane, you know, things that they suddenly come out of nowhere with. And I would love that. You know, right now we don't really know what the Iron Horde has done in the last 30 years, so if we suddenly see in the next patch some crazy contraptions, players are like, where did this come from? The Magar, you know, they didn't have it built when we went to visit them for 10 minutes, but now that we're here, they got some pretty cool ideas. I would love that, to the point where goblins go, holy shit, we should, you know, we should hire these guys. You know, I would love to see an expansion on the Magar visual kit. I don't know if Blizzard will ever do it, but I'd love to see it. Worgen. I've always had in my mind that the Worgen have this sort of industrial steampunk society, even if we haven't seen a whole hell of a lot of it. They do have pistols, they do have, you know, muskets and rifles and guns and stuff like that. I would love to see a more industrial steampunk side. We do get a little bit of a steampunk feel with the Kultiris humans in their kit. So a combination, maybe one or the other. I don't know. I don't. Worgen, they kind of went the nature route, but I would love a combination of Worgen, or maybe if they just do it for Kultiris humans, to see this sort of Monster Hunter Van Helsing. You know, I was talking to someone earlier. We're talking about Monster Hunter class aesthetic, and I think it would be cool if Worgen and Forsaken had that, in that the two monsters are the monster hunters. Because, you know, you get a lot of ideas that in Gilneas there was a lot of tales in the dark woods of scary, spoopy monsters. And so maybe there was like a secret society of a witch hunter kind of character, of a Witcher style character. So steampunk tech would be amazing. We've never seen it before, but screw it, let's introduce it. We haven't seen it on a large scale, at least. And to tie in with Forsaken, that gothic fantasy for the Horde. You know, we see that gothic horror just by looking at their buildings and the way the top of the buildings with the fences are, and the way how their inns and buildings look like secret scary laboratories and stuff like that. Look at the sets for the Darkshore Forsaken. It's some of the best sets that Blizzard's ever done. Looking at the mail set and how it's like a gothic coat, how the leather set is layered and has that sort of almost stylish, elegant look, but then has Forsaken skulls all over it. Take the gothic Worgen look, make it dark, and slap skulls all over it. Bam, there's the Forsaken look, and add Blight. I haven't really talked about, by the way, like healing parts of Tinkers, and the idea that Mr. GM was talking about, maybe it was Taliesin and Evitil, sort of like a healing beam, in that nothing to do with holy magic or nature magic, but it's literally just a beam that just pumps you full of health. How does that work? I don't know. But concentrated, you know, maybe there's a way for the Draenei and the Lightforge. You know, the Lightforge literally just pumps you full of holy magic, but the Draenei are using arcane in a way to stitch up your wounds, and maybe, I don't know, the Kultiris humans have like a Tide Sage in a tank, mini Tide Sage, or like a Tide Sage artifact or something. So a cannon blessed by the Tide. I don't know. It could just think, like someone just said in chat here, think like Ana from Overwatch. Syringes that heal you in some way. Nightborne, just pump you full of Nightborne magic and hope that it has no effects on you. And Forsaken, well, don't let them pump you full of anything, because that would end horribly. But their turrets could be plague. That would be horrifying, but cool. There's really no other races that kind of fit. I thought night elves, and I was like nature-based golems. I'm like, that's a cool druid ability, but not really tinker. Trolls, I thought, okay, living stone golems, you know, held together by voodoo magic. I'm like, again, it's not really tinker. Maybe a voodoo turret. I'm like, it's not really. That's literally just voodooizing everything about it. I wouldn't be upset if they did it. It just doesn't fit the tinker theme of explosives and devices. Tauren, this was talked about in a stream I did a couple weeks ago about how the Tauren, you know, for a race that's very simple and nomadic, they have their technology. They have, and, you know, someone might laugh, but the Great Lift, the elevator, that's technology. The giant turning wheels in Thunder Totem, windmills, that's all technology. But it's not tinker technology, I don't think. I think I can't really see a Tauren golem, you know, made of wood, and, you know, I thought of like shamanistic or druidic magic, and I'm like, again, that's not really tinkerish. That's more combining and maybe that we're going to get into the class race fantasy. Maybe tinkers on all fronts are very tech inspired, but trolls and Tauren and night elves, their themed tinkers are not tech inspired. Maybe that's the appeal to them. Maybe everyone can be tinkers, and most of the races fit the technology aspect, whether it's crude like Forsaken Plague or Goblin Bombs technology, all the way up to the light forged perfect technology of being crystal magic and shield magic. Maybe it's something that's not mechanical. It's something more magical based. If Nightborne can do it, why not Tauren? That'd be cool. Those are my ideas for the races for a tinker. Now, do I think tinkers will be put in game? Maybe. There's a chance. Do I think that every race will be given this such a unique approach? No, I really don't. I would love it if they do. That would make it so much more interesting, but then it would kind of make the rest of the classes look a little bit lackluster. If there's so much class race fantasy for tinkers, what about the rest of the classes? Well, BlizzCon 2019, they announced that there is going to be class and race fantasy for the other classes as well in this hypothetical situation. And it was actually linked to this thread by someone in my Discord. My Mind Won't Quiet, one of the RWow mods. God bless you, sir, and or ma'am, for being an RWow mod. They linked me to a MMO champion thread. And right away you think, oh god, MMO champion. No. It's good. It's actually a really cool idea. It's called specialization overlays, and I'm gonna link this in the description, or if you're watching this on Twitch, right there. That link right there for everyone who's watching us on stream. Basically, the idea is you can unlock an overlay that fits your race and class, that is purely aesthetic, purely cosmetic, has no impact on your abilities, does not change what your abilities can do or how much damage they do. It's all visual only. Now, the example they give is the Sentinel and a Tinker. In their example, Tinkers are actually Hunter Beastmasters, Protection Warriors, and Elemental Shamans, but they have a Dark Ranger example as well, where you do a quest, a storyline, and similar to how Night Elves can unlock the Night Warrior, you unlock the Dark Ranger overlay. That works for marksman hunters only. And your arcane shot becomes Black Arrow. Your marked shot becomes Withering Fire. Your bursting shot maybe is called Wailing Scream. You don't even shoot anything, you just scream at the target. And it's for their example, it's only for marksmen. Now I have a different example here that I kind of went into some depth on. And what about a Warden overlay? All right, so you go in to do a quest, and it's available to all hunters warriors and rogues that are night elves. Doesn't matter your spec. And the warden, you do a quest. Maybe you unlock a little transmog set or a little transmog cosmetic set that's only available if you are playing with this overlay. So similar to how heritage is based on your race, you can only, or maybe it's unlocked by all night elves, or they keep it locked to size over, the class overlay. I don't know. But let's say there's a warden overlay, right? You do the quest and it's open to night elf warriors, hunters, and rogues. Now the abilities would do the same damage and function, but the names would change and there'd be different visuals. So what if a rogue, when they vanish, maybe a hunter when they use camouflage, they leave behind an avatar of vengeance? Now, I know avatars of vengeance are supposed to do something, hence the name Vengeance, but just for the pure sake of this, they leave behind a little glowy reflection of what you are. And I have here monks, the monk ability, Storm, Earth, and Fire. No reason why wardens can't be monks. And I think, let's take this whole hypothetical situation out of the way. Monks need to move away from the Pandaren fantasy. I'm saying it right now. I love Pandaria. I love the Pandaren kit. I love everything about Pandaren. I think Mist was is up there as my top favorite expansion. But the monk class fantasy needs to move away from Pandaren. Monks are not solely restricted to just the Pandaren teachings of chi and drinking Pandaren ale. I see dwarven monk NPCs and they're wearing Pandaren outfits. Why can't they wear Ironforge leather inspired gear? Why are they wearing belts with paws symbols on it? That just doesn't seem... What? No, stop. Be proud of your culture. Probably the biggest example of a monk race combo that isn't a Pandaren monk is the Magar. The Magar monks are literally the Burning Blade clan. And a lot of people kind of get mad at that idea, but look at their Storm, Earth, and Fire ability, and then look at Samuro and Here's the Storm. Look at all the beads that they wear, then look at the beads that monks wear, right? Look at the fire abilities with the fire breath and stuff like that. Burning Blade, it makes sense. And a monk isn't someone who meditates and reads Pandaren poetry and drinks ale and practices kung fu. A monk is literally a lightly armored warrior who fights with either a staff or a polearm or their bare hands or some simple weapons, and they use martial arts and their quick handed abilities to overpower their enemies. Now they do use the element of spirit, which is chi. So why does it have to be chi? Issei and I talked about Draenei monks literally being Akandun priests, practicing the essence of life, and as consequence death as well, that sort of duality aspect. So I totally think that Pandaren monks, the monk class has to move away from Pandaren. What about a night elf monk being a warden? Let's move it away from Pandaren. Storm, Earth, and Fire leaves behind avatars of vengeance, which actually do damage. That'd be really cool. Instead of leaving an imprint of you, right now they leave behind an imprint of you literally wearing Pandaren gear, which is frustrating. They duplicate you into 3 wardens. That would be cool. Warriors have a blink charge, similar to how wardens have. Now, for the sake of mechanics, this wouldn't actually be a blink charge. The visual would be a blink, but mechanically wise, you would run from point A to your target in a straight line, instead of teleporting from point A to point B. It would literally be you travel the same path, but visually you vanish. You're still there, but visually you vanish, appear behind your target. And hunters, maybe their traps are warden themed, or the same kind of way they trap demon hunters. Flock of crows or a bunch of spirit owls. Basically take, a warden class isn't really a warrior, it's not really a rogue, it's not really a hunter, it's kind of a mixture of all of them. So this overlay idea sells that multi-class fantasy that you're trying to play. And now, someone brought up a very good point. Wouldn't this muddle the class fantasy of what you are playing? Wouldn't this make hunters and rogues and warriors all the same? Well, it would. That would be the point of playing a warden rogue or a warden warrior or a warden hunter, in that you are muddled because you are now playing or fitting into the multi-class theme of that overlay spec. What about sea priests? Kultiris humans and regular humans, since we've seen so many humans in Kultiris regular sized, and not, the big boys and big gals, have a sea priest theme. So mages, priests, and shamans can all opt into this sea priest theme, and you can be a offensive sea priest mage, where you're using your frostbolt, or your abilities are sea priest and water themed. Shamans already use water, but maybe an enhancement shaman, you're not throwing fire away, you're literally slapping people with your wet mace. I don't know. Same with priests. The shadow spec priests can tap into the sort of the questionable void aspects of sea priests, right? The sentinel example could fit into rogues and warriors and hunters too. Dark rangers, that could be for forsaken and blood elves only. Quests to unlock, that would and little lore quests, sort of like the race heritage armors that's coming out right now, the Sindora and the dwarves have like a little quest line that guides you through this and sort of gives you a reason, instead of just having the blood elf golden eyes that got thrown in game and as if they've always been there. Have it something to unlock or something to work towards. That would be cool. Now what about I can go on for hours about class overlay fantasies, where this multi-class idea, maybe necromancers are a blend of warlocks and death knights, you've got, and different abilities. But rather than brainstorm that, I thought, what about just breaking it down by race? And I don't have all the races here, I just jotted down the ones that jump out to me the most. The first one I talk about is Pandaren. I just kind of shit-talked the Pandaren for a single moment. But let's hype them up a little bit. I would love if their class fantasies had some sort of inspiration from the Celestials. Dogs barking, sorry. Red healing for Chi-Ji's, the avatar of Chi-Ji. Dog's done. Red healing for the healing of Chi-Ji for priests, shamans, what else? Monks, rogues and warriors, depending on your spec. Maybe you have sort of a blue Zhuan aesthetic, or even monks in there. We can have shamans, mages, have an elemental Yu'lon theme, a green jade fire. It'd be tricky, but not make it warlock green fire, make it Yu'lon inspired green fire. What about protection warriors having monk tanks already have the same thing, but having a black ox theme in some sort of way? It gets a little bit more difficult, but maybe they get a shield with Nizao's face on it. I don't know. Shadowpan aesthetic? Nothing to do with the Celestials, but just the Shadowpan aesthetic in general, that'd be really dope. Trolls. Trolls literally could just be Loa anything. What if they followed the class Loas from Hearthstone? How cool would that be? We have a Loa abilities for priests. Not really Razan, but Kimball or Shirvala, whoever you want to choose. Akunda has some holy abilities as well. Shadow Priest pull from Bwonsamdi maybe in some sort of way. I mean, the priest class Loa for priests in Hearthstone is literally Bwonsamdi. So, Talanji now, because of her father's deal, is a priestess of Bwonsamdi. What about mages? Jan Alai, the Firehawk from Zul Northern one, Zulaman. What about Grawl themed, the Shark Loa for Frost Mages, or maybe Drakari themed Loas for Frost Mages? Rogues have a mixture of Loa. They can use Shadra for poisons, Hyreek for shadow themed abilities, maybe, Bat Loa. Bethek, the Panther Loa from ZG for stealth. Warriors, we've got Akunda, big, huge thunder lizard, and Akali, the Rhino. Also, side note for warriors, axe throwing ability. Berserkers, I know they have heroic toss, but a little bit more focused on that troll berserker fantasy. Paladins, they've got, again, Kimball or Shirvallah, whoever you choose. Maybe Razan's not dead. You know, Alex Afrasiabi did say in the BlizzCon interview that the Loa can come back. So, Razan, where you at, boy? Shamans and druids are just a mixture of all the Loas. They can call upon Kragwa's abilities and the wind from Paku and Gonk abilities and Akunda again. Warlocks, I kind of stretched it a bit. Hyreek is the Warlock class Loa for Hearthstone. Come back to me on that one. But little demons with voodoo masks on, that'd be cool. There's a little imp in Orgrimmar summoned by a troll, and it's wearing a little troll voodoo mask. That'd be funny. I'd dig it. And again, you know, maybe these class abilities, you know, rogues calling upon Shadra or Hyreek, both those guys are dead, or Guy and Gal are dead. Maybe the whole quest line for these things is to go back and help them come back, help them regenerate. Shadra comes back to life. I blatantly asked, is Shadra gonna come back? And Wild Gods do come back, Loa do come back. Death Knights being representatives of Bwonsamdi, so maybe not Lich King themed, but they've got the white ghostly aura of Bwonsamdi instead. Maybe their troll eyes glow white. That would be cool, as sort of a homage to their patron Loa. What about Night Elves? Night Elf priests, silver and white discipline and holy priest abilities calling upon Elune, or the Night Warrior side, calling on the dark side of the moon, with maybe their shadow abilities are less void and maybe just dark, aggressive moon magic. That would be really cool to see. You know, I would actually prefer if the Night Warrior abilities could be, you know, Elune's side are holy and discipline, but the Night Warrior side can be holy, discipline, and shadow as well. It'd be cool to be a holy priest, but be a Night Warrior holy priest, like Tyrande, you know, being a angry holy priest, and then you have your shadow abilities as well. I'm going to throw them in there. Paladins of Elune. They exist. They're out there. It's a class thing. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. How cool would it be to see a bunch of Night Elven Night Warriors in plate with giant hammers and swords? Reflecting Elune's wrath, Elune's beauty. Rogues, as I said earlier, kind of playing off the Warden theme. What if they didn't play off the Warden theme? What if they didn't play off the Sentinel theme? What if they played off the Elune themed? Assassination, and credit to Chandran for kind of giving me the description here. She broke down what her ideal assassination, sub, and outlaw would examples would be for Night Elven class fantasies. Assassination centered around natural plant poisons, fighting this sort of guerrilla style warfare. Night Saber, maybe a lot of their abilities are named like Night Sabers, how they're lunging out of the shadows like a Night Saber or a bear with antlers. Maybe their abilities have a little bit more druidic influence, nature influence. Sub-Spectre, less shadow-themed abilities and more Night Warrior with that blue and silvery tone. And Outlaw's a bit weird. They'd literally be outcasts of Kaldori society. No guns, crossbow, knives, maybe some sort of, instead of the dice, it's sort of animal totem, you know, kind of thrown back to the old Wild God. There's so much you can do with Night Elves. You can go Sentinel, Warden, Night Warrior. Druids, more druid forms. Whether this concept that I'm talking about right now gets put into game or not, Blizzard needs to put out more druid forms. Especially since so many druids will barely see their gear in the first place. That's why I thought Legion's druid forms were amazing. And I think there should be a new bear form and a new cat form and a new moonkin form for every raid that comes out, themed to the raid. That would be really cool. Take on another wild god form. Maybe a keeper, kind of like, not Titan Keeper, but like, names are hard, Cenarius' keeper form as a tank. That'd be cool if you're like a night elf. That'd be really dope. I don't know how they would do that, but Anyone have any other ideas? You know, what would other Night Elf Druid forms be? Savagekin? I'd say Goldrin, but that's already a race. A Harpy form? That'd be horrifying. That'd be cool. Like a Boomkin Harpy form? That'd be really cool. Dwarves? Dark Irons? Not as Druid forms. But, Rune Masters. Rune Masters could actually be any race. But they have a sort of... Maybe their abilities have more of a special effect on your character itself. The runes kind of glow off of you. Shamans have a more elemental base, but they... Especially for Dark Irons, but instead of like, you know, electricity and healing magic, they pull raw magma from the ground. You know, we do see a lot of that. We see the giant chunks of rock and magma being thrown, but on a much more grander scale, especially for Dark Irons, would be really dope. Tauren. Tauren are a victim of class fantasy, especially with their paladins and priests. I love the idea of Tauren Sunwalkers. I do not like the idea of Tauren Paladins. I love the idea of Tauren Sunwalkers. Which is why I get that Sunwalker... They couldn't make a Sunwalker class. I get that. So Tauren Paladins make sense as Sunwalkers. But I want to see that. I want to see their holy abilities more fire-like. Not mage fire, not shaman fire, more light fire. They're calling upon Anshay's magic. And credit to Latest for using this example. Think of Sunfire and think of the Wrath abilities that Druids have. Same sort of aesthetic, a sort of lighter, fiery, you know, maybe if they use a judgment ability, it's a more, you know, aggressive fire attack, while Holy Light is a softer fiery heal. Blessing of Anshay instead of, you know, Blessing of Protection, or just literally just change the names. When you pop your wings, it's fiery ghost totems. I don't know, that'd be cool. Druid forms. What about a Kodo tank form? That'd be amazing. You don't use your claws, you use your head. You just swing your head and punch them with your nose. That would be amazing. Why not? Grassland Stalker cat form, kind of the Savannah cats. That'd be really dope. I'd love that for druids. Warriors, totem abilities. Why not? I don't really have anything else to say about Tauren warriors. I'd love to see Lightforged mages and Lightforge, just Lightforge in general, have more light actually infused in their abilities. So like Lightforged mages, maybe their arcane crackles with light magic as well. Maybe even for warriors, when they pop a defensive cooldown, they have a glowing protection around them. They're you know, Lightforged warriors are essentially paladins, but they choose the more offensive attacking rather than actually using the holy light, but maybe by default it just kicks in. What else can Lightforge be? There can be priests, mages, warriors, paladins, hunters, you know, light infused bullets. I don't know, screw it, why not? That'd be cool. And I'd love if just regular Draenei sort of get, or regular Draenei, Highborn, Night Elf mages, even Nightborne mages. Their arcane all differs. I would love a more celestial, primal arcane for the Draenei, you know, calling upon the earliest arcane magic that they learned back as the Eridar, while the Nightborne really have that Nightwell dark purple starlit magic, while the Highborn Night Elves have a more bluish silvery magic. I'm improvising these other ideas now on the spot. Gnome medics? Gnome paladins, first of all. Gnome paladins. Jeff, if you're listening, you're welcome. Gnome paladins need to be a thing. But gnome medics would be cool. Their holy light is just like an Ana ability. Just the holy splash. I suppose that comes in as a tinker ability. Rogues are probably one of the hardest things to come up with, since there isn't really rogue fantasies out there. Night Elves have a lot of them. Trolls have a lot of them. But like a human, what's a human rogue? It's an assassin. It's a SI7 agent. That's what rogues are in game right now. So rogues and warriors are a little bit challenging, but hunters, I'd love to see a marksman themed, you know, for blood elves. I loved the tier 19 hunter set from Legion, from the Nighthold and the Emerald Nightmare raid set for hunters. Yeah, that's blood elf themed. That is blood elf armor, and it looked dope. I would love to see dwarves would be a little bit challenging, but more, you know, more tracker or more wilderness themed abilities. There's so many examples, and if you guys are listening to this, whether it's on stream or on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, hell, drop me a note on Twitter, tag me in a post. What would you guys like to see as race class combos? Have I said anything that jumps out as the coolest idea? Have I said something that's really stupid and you're like, that sounds dumb? Let me know. Tell me your thoughts on what these ideas are. If you could have any sort of class fantasy that fits the lore, and this is key, isn't game breaking, isn't game mechanic breaking. If we don't keep that rule in, you could have any sort of idea you want, right? Void elves being able to go through walls, that'd be cool as hell, but you know, that's very broken. Lightforge being able to teleport away in an instant because of their technology, again, broken. So let's keep it game mechanic possibilities. You know, let's make it so you don't get any buff from this. You just look cool as hell when you're doing this. What would you like to see? And think of it in an overlay example. So maybe Pandaren unlock the celestial overlay, and based on your class, you get different celestial abilities. As a priest, you're the only priest in game that gets a red healing spell. That's amazing. And if you want to be a human with a red healing spell, you race change to Pandaren. Tell me your ideas. Tell me your ideas in the comments. Shoot me on Twitter. Hell, join the Discord, links below, and tell us in the Discord. I'd love to see these ideas. I'd love to hear these ideas. This sort of podcast idea was inspired by the Tinkers, and, you know, I want to see Tinkers in game. I want to see Gnome, Junker Gnome, and Goblin Tinkers, but I thought, what else could they be? And this sort of led to that idea of a Loa themed overlay, or a Warden themed overlay, or a Anshe themed overlay for all the respective classes. Yeah, that's all I got for this week for Decoded. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think about the idea of Tinkers. Tell me what you think about the idea of Tinkers and the race combos. I get the argument that Tinkers are going to be made useless because of engineers, and you know, and there's actually a very valid point out there. We have so many classes in game, and classes are not balanced right now. Perfectly. Is introducing another class a smart idea? Let's pretend that's not even part of the argument. Let's say 100% Tinkers are confirmed. Tell me what race you would be most excited for and what racial abilities you want to see. And the argument of whether Tinker should be a class or not, let's save that for another video. Speaking of other videos, go watch the Taliesin and Mr. GM. Taliesin and Evitil Tinker video, and the Mr. GM Tinker video. Mr. GM shows all the spell effects that the Tinker mobs on the Island Expedition uses, thanks to Wowhead. Wowhead has a list of all the abilities. They look really cool. And Taliesin and Evitil just go into full-on explanation of where they are in the lore and the hints that are in game. There's a lot there, especially with Mechagon coming. So I think Tinkers would be a pretty good, especially if we go to like another planet next expansion, or we're fighting the big evil bads of... Someone had a great example. What if the Horde Alliance, again, we have to team up against the Black Empire next expansion or something. What if the capital is Undermine, and it's just a giant mech capital of, or you know, the Horde... I would hate if the Horde got Undermine. I want to see neutral goblins. Just mechs against the Black Empire. How cool would that be? Draenei mechs beaming in, and Lightforge beaming in, and you know, big gnomish tanks, and huge Kultiris and Worgen steampunk showing up in Undermine. And yes, Undermine needs to be a thing. Tiny Valkyrie, I know you're listening. Undermine needs to be a thing. And then you got the Goblin monks monks, tinkers coming in with the Iron Horde techs and the Nightborne magical tech and the Blood Elf tech and man, World of Techcraft. Please, can we just have it? I'd love if they gave us tinkers with such a massive amount of customizability and all that. So guys, leave me a comment on what your favorite tinker race combo would be and what you would like to see. And if maybe I failed to say an example and you're like, oh, what about this? Or maybe you have a good argument for Tauren tinkers. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for listening to episode 34 of Decoded, the first podcast of 2019. I will be back next week. Topic to be decided. I think I have a good idea what we're talking about. Need to do a little bit of research, but yeah, we'll be back next week. And again, the lore stream is coming up. Let's go cheer on Steve and Taryn. Let's go hope for some interesting questions. Let's hope that the community doesn't ask stupid questions. And bound to ask stupid questions. Let's just hope we get a stream very much like Ian's 8.1 stream, where we're just kind of led in a direction rather than a senseless. Q&As are dangerous. So let's go support our story boys, Taryn and Steve. Don't be dicks in the chat. I know that's going to be a shit show, but let's overpower the dicks. Let's overpower the meanness and let's cheer them on, because if we have a positive reaction to this lore stream, we will probably get more in the future. If we crap all over it and hate it and make 30 YouTube videos about why it means Blizzard's going down the drain because of Activision or something, we're probably never gonna get them again. So let's go and give some positivity and cheer on the lore boys. I will be hosting the Q&A stream, by the way, but I'll also be in the chat because I'm gonna brave the chat. Good lord! But if you don't want to brave the chat because it's gonna be a shitstorm, and it will be, come to this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Lost Codex Lore, where you can hang out in a much more calm environment and a much more chill with everyone in chat here. We got 29 viewers watching this live. For those of you who are listening on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, on your Walkman for some reason, tune in. And you'd say, Jesse, when do you record this live? Do you have a set date? No, is my answer. It's usually Monday or Tuesday. So I'm telling you to come join, but then I'm not giving you an exact day, so that's kind of scumbaggish of me. But you know what? If you can make the stream, do it. If you can't, that's okay. There's always the Twitch VODs. And if you watch the stream live or you watch the Twitch VODs, you get to see the pre-show where I set up. You get to see me talk and yell as you normally would, and then you get to see the post-show. There's going to be a post-show where we hang out, we shoot the shit. It's going to be good. Thank you guys for hanging out for episode 34 of Decoded. My name is Jesse. We'll be back next week with episode 35. 35, holy crap. See you next week. Thank you guys.